German Shepherd was kept inside a dark box for weeks. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen to will break your heart and then mend it in ways you never thought possible. What this child did next shocked an entire community and might just restore your faith in humanity. Like, share, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments below. Rain pounded against the windows of the community center, a harsh reminder of nature's recent fury. 5-year-old Noah pressed his small hand against the cold glass, watching rivulets of water race down like tiny rivers. 3 days had passed since the Millbrook flood forced hundreds of families from their homes, including Noah's. "Come away from the window, sweetie," his mother Sophia called, arranging a thin mattress on the floor of what used to be the center's gymnasium. "We need to get our sleeping area set up before dinner." Noah didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the gray world outside, where emergency vehicles with flashing lights continued to patrol the devastated streets. "But Daddy might not find us if I'm not watching." Sophia's hands trembled as she smoothed the blanket. Her husband Daniel had stayed behind when the evacuation orders came, insisting he could save their apartment with sandbags. That was before the river broke through the levee and submerged entire neighborhoods. "Remember what I told you? Daddy's helping the rescue teams now. He'll come when he can." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue, but hope was all she had left to give her son. A commotion at the center's entrance drew their attention. Volunteers were wheeling in carts of supplies, while new evacuees shook off rainwater from their coats. Noah's eyes widened when he spotted a familiar figure. "Daddy!" he screamed, bolting across the crowded gymnasium floor. Daniel caught his son mid-leap, his clothes still damp, face etched with exhaustion. "There's my brave boy," Daniel whispered, his voice cracking as he clung to Noah. When he reached Sophia, he enveloped her in a one-armed embrace, his other arm still firmly holding their son. "I thought—" Sophia couldn't finish, her words dissolving into silent tears. "I know," Daniel said. "The water came so fast. I barely made it out." He didn't mention swimming through their submerged living room or climbing onto their neighbor's roof as their entire complex disappeared beneath muddy water. That night, the family of 3 huddled together on their makeshift bed, listening to the steady drumming of rain. Sleep came fitfully for the adults, but Noah drifted off, his small body finally relaxing after days of tension. It was just past midnight when Noah's eyes snapped open. The gymnasium was quiet, except for the soft snores and occasional whimpers of other evacuees. Something had awakened him, a sound so faint he wasn't sure if he'd dreamed it. There it was again, a soft, scratching noise, followed by what sounded like a muffled cry. Noah sat up, careful not to disturb his parents. The sound seemed to be coming from below, beneath the wooden floor of the gymnasium. He placed his palm flat against the cool surface, feeling a faint vibration. "Someone's down there," he whispered to himself. The next morning, Noah tugged insistently on Daniel's sleeve during breakfast. "Daddy, there's someone crying in the dark." Daniel exchanged a worried glance with Sophia. "It was just a bad dream, buddy. Everyone's safe here." Noah shook his head, his blue eyes serious. "No, I heard them. In the basement. They're scratching to get out." An elderly volunteer serving oatmeal overheard the conversation. "The little ones probably heard the generators," she suggested kindly. "They're running in the basement, make all sorts of racket." But Noah's expression remained stubborn. "It's not the generators. It's someone small, someone scared." Daniel ruffled his son's hair. "Tell you what, after breakfast, we'll check it out together, okay?" The community center's basement was off limits to evacuees, but Daniel managed to convince a harried volunteer coordinator to let them take a quick look. "My son's worried there might be someone down there," he explained. "It'll help him sleep better." The coordinator sighed, keys jingling in his hand. 5 minutes. We're using the basement for supply storage, and we can't have people wandering around down there." The metal door creaked as it opened, revealing a narrow staircase descending into dim light. Noah grabbed his father's hand as they made their way down the stairs, Sophia following close behind. The basement was a large, open space filled with cardboard boxes, folding tables, and emergency supplies. The low hum of generators provided a constant backdrop of noise, just as the volunteer had suggested. "See, buddy? Just machines and boxes. Nobody down here," Daniel said gently. But Noah tugged free of his father's grip, walking purposefully toward the far corner of the basement, where the shadows grew deeper. "It's coming from over there," he insisted, pointing to a section of wall partially hidden behind stacked crates. Daniel followed, more to humor his son than anything else. "Noah, I don't think—" "Shh!" Noah pressed his ear against the wall. "Listen." For a moment, they all stood in silence. Then, so faint it might have been imagination, came a sound, a soft scratching, followed by what could have been a whimper. Daniel's expression changed. "That's probably just water in the pipes, or maybe even a raccoon that got trapped after the storm." "No," Noah said with the absolute certainty only a child can possess. "Someone's crying for help." Back upstairs, Daniel reported what they had heard to the volunteer coordinator, who promised to have maintenance check for animals that might have sought shelter during the flood. Noah remained unconvinced, growing quieter and more withdrawn as the day progressed. That afternoon, rescue workers arrived with updates and news of recovery efforts. Noah listened intently as they described the ongoing cleanup. "We found an old storage container behind the Westfield garage," one worker mentioned to the group. "Thought someone might be inside, but it was just junk, probably washed up during the flood." Noah's head snapped up. "Where's the garage?" The worker glanced down, surprised by the child's intensity. "About 3 blocks from here, kid, but it's all closed off. Too dangerous with the structural damage." Later, as evacuees gathered for dinner, Noah picked at his food, his thoughts elsewhere. Sophia noticed his distraction. "What's wrong, sweetie? Not hungry?" "The crying is getting weaker," Noah said quietly. Daniel and Sophia exchanged concerned looks. "Noah, honey," Sophia began, "sometimes after scary things happen, our minds play tricks on us. It's okay to be afraid, but—" "I'm not making it up," Noah's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby tables. His cheeks flushed red with frustration. "Nobody believes me, but someone needs help. They're scared and hungry and all alone in the dark." Daniel placed a calming hand on his son's shoulder. "We believe you're hearing something," he said carefully, "but the rescue teams have checked everywhere. If someone needed help, they would have found them." Noah's bottom lip trembled. "They didn't check the right places. They don't know how to listen." That night, Noah lay awake long after his parents had fallen asleep. The crying in his head had grown fainter, more desperate. It tugged at him, a silent plea he couldn't ignore. Making a decision, he carefully slipped out from under his blanket. The gymnasium was dimly lit by emergency exit signs, casting long shadows across the sleeping forms of other evacuees. Noah navigated through the maze of makeshift beds, his heart hammering against his ribs. He knew what he was doing was wrong. His parents would be terrified when they discovered him missing, but the crying voice wouldn't let him rest. He reached the main doors, relieved to find them unlocked from the inside. The night air hit him with a shock of coldness, the rain having finally subsided to a light drizzle. Puddles reflected the moonlight that occasionally broke through the clouds, creating an eerie landscape of silver and shadow. Noah hesitated on the community center steps, suddenly aware of how small he was in this flooded world. But the crying came again, clearer now that he was outside, pulling him forward like an invisible string. 3 blocks. That's what the rescue worker had said. 3 blocks to the Westfield garage. Noah had walked these streets countless times with his parents, but never alone, never at night, and certainly never after a devastating flood. The familiar landmarks were distorted, trees uprooted, cars abandoned at odd angles, debris scattered like forgotten toys. He splashed through ankle-deep puddles, his sneakers quickly soaked through. The cold made his teeth chatter, but he pressed on, following both memory and the strange, compelling cry that seemed to grow more distinct with each step. Twice he had to detour around cordoned-off areas marked with caution tape, and once he froze as a police car slowly patrolled past, ducking behind a toppled mailbox until the lights disappeared around a corner. Finally, the hulking shape of Westfield Garage loomed before him. The building had partially collapsed on one side, its concrete facade cracked and crumbling. Warning signs prohibited entry, their red letters stark against yellow backgrounds. Danger, unsafe structure. Noah hesitated only a moment before slipping under the barricade. The crying was clearer now, a rhythmic whimpering punctuated by feeble scratching. It wasn't coming from inside the garage itself, but from behind it, where a chain-link fence separated the property from an overgrown lot. His small fingers worked their way through a gap in the fence, widening it just enough for his body to squeeze through. The lot was dark, filled with shadows that seemed to move and shift as clouds passed over the moon. But Noah wasn't afraid of the dark, only of failing to find the source of the crying before it fell silent forever. A large metal container, the kind used for shipping, sat half buried in mud at the far end of the lot. It hadn't been there before the flood, must have been carried by the surging waters and deposited like driftwood. The door was bent and jammed, sealed shut by the impact. And from within came the sound, no longer just in Noah's head, but real and desperate, a soft whimpering, growing weaker by the moment. Noah ran to the container, his hands pressing against the cold metal. "Hello?" he called, his voice small in the vastness of the night. "I hear you. I'm going to get you out." The whimpering intensified briefly, followed by feeble scratching against the inside of the door. Noah tugged at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic rose in his throat. He wasn't strong enough. He glanced around frantically, spotting a length of metal pipe half buried in mud nearby. Struggling to free it, he finally wrenched it from the ground and wedged it into the narrow gap between the container door and frame. "Hold on," he grunted, throwing his weight against the makeshift lever. Nothing happened at first, but then a groan of protesting metal, a creak, and the door shifted slightly. Encouraged, Noah repositioned the pipe and pushed again, harder this time. The gap widened an inch, then two. One more mighty effort, every muscle in his small body straining, and the door scraped open just enough for him to peer inside. Darkness greeted him, along with the smell of wet fur and fear. Noah fumbled in his pocket for the small flashlight keychain his father had given him, a trinket that now became a beacon as he directed its beam into the container. Two eyes reflected back the light, low to the ground. A German Shepherd puppy, no more than a few months old, lay huddled in the corner. Its ribs showed clearly through matted fur, its sides heaving with shallow breaths. "I found you," Noah whispered, his voice breaking. "I knew you were real." The puppy made no sound, hadn't made any audible sound at all, Noah realized with a start. Yet he had heard its cries as clearly as if they'd been spoken words. He squeezed through the gap, rushing to the puppy's side. It didn't move as he approached, too weak even to lift its head. Gently, Noah stroked its dirty fur, feeling each rib beneath his fingertips. "It's okay now," he soothed. "I won't leave you in the dark anymore." The puppy's eyes, amber, with flecks of gold, fixed on Noah's face. A faint thump of its tail stirred the dirt. Outside, shouting voices carried on the night air. The search for him had begun. Soon flashlight beams crisscrossed the garage area, and the urgent calls of his parents echoed through the darkness. "Noah! Noah!" He should have called back, should have yelled for help, but he couldn't leave the puppy, couldn't risk adults rushing in and saying it was too late, the animal too far gone. Instead, he carefully gathered the frail body in his arms, surprised by how little it weighed. The puppy offered no resistance, its head lolling against Noah's chest. He could feel its heartbeat, rapid and faint, like the wings of a trapped bird. "Noah Alexander Wilson!" His mother's voice broke on his name, terror making it sharp. "Here!" he finally called, cradling his precious cargo as he maneuvered back through the container door. "I'm here, and I'm not alone." Flashlight beams swung in his direction, momentarily blinding him. Then his father was there, grabbing him by the shoulders, fear and relief warring on his face. "What were you thinking?" Daniel's voice shook. "We've been out of our minds with worry." Then he noticed what Noah held. What in the world? "He was trapped," Noah explained, tears streaming down his face. "Nobody heard him crying but me. He was dying in the dark." Sophia pushed forward through the small crowd that had gathered. Rescue workers, police, volunteers from the shelter. Her face was pale with spent fear, but she didn't scold or grab. Instead, she knelt in the mud beside her son, looking at the barely breathing puppy in his arms. "Oh, Noah," she whispered, reaching out to touch first her son's wet cheek, then the puppy's matted fur. "How did you know?" "I heard him," Noah said simply. "In my head. He was calling for someone to find him." A paramedic stepped forward, his expression serious as he took in the puppy's condition. "That dog needs medical attention right away. There's a mobile vet unit set up near the community center for displaced animals." "Please," Noah begged, looking up at his parents. "Please don't be mad. I had to save him." Daniel and Sophia exchanged a look, one of those silent communications that parents perfect. Then Daniel sighed, nodding slowly. "You shouldn't have run off alone," he said, his voice stern but gentling. "You could have been hurt, but—" He gazed at the puppy, then back at his son's tear-streaked face. "But I understand why you did." As they carried the puppy back toward help, a police officer approached them. That container wasn't there before the flood, he explained. Must have been carried from somewhere upriver when the water rose. Been sealed tight for at least 2 weeks, by my guess. 2 weeks? Sophia gasped, looking down at the emaciated animal. How could it possibly survive? The officer shook his head. There was some water inside from the looks of it. Maybe enough to keep it alive. It's a miracle the little guy held on this long. Noah, walking carefully between his parents with his precious burden, shook his head. Not a miracle, he corrected softly. He knew someone would hear him. He just had to wait for the right person to listen. The puppy's eyes, dulled by starvation and dehydration, found Noah's face again. And though no sound passed its lips, Noah heard the voice clearly in his mind. Thank you for finding me. As they reached the brightly lit emergency vehicles, Noah looked down at the puppy and whispered a promise. I'm going to call you Max, and I'll always listen when you call. The paramedics rushed forward with blankets, and somewhere in the chaos, a vet appeared, carefully taking Max from Noah's reluctant arms. As the puppy disappeared into the back of a vehicle marked with a red cross, Noah felt the connection between them stretch, but not break. Whatever happened next, a bond had been forged in darkness and sealed in the light of rescue. A bond that Noah somehow knew would change everything. Morning came with weak sunlight filtering through clouds, the storm finally surrendering to clear skies. Noah hadn't slept. How could he? Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Max's amber gaze, felt the frail body in his arms, heard the silent voice that had called to him through walls and darkness. Can we see him now? Noah asked for the third time as Sophia combed his hair, preparing for their meeting with the shelter coordinator. As soon as we're done here, she promised, though uncertainty shadowed her eyes. Daniel paced nearby, phone pressed to his ear. Yes, I understand the policy, he was saying, his voice strained, but this is an exceptional circumstance. A pause. No, we don't have documentation. Everything was lost in the flood. He ended the call with a frustrated sigh. Noah looked up at his father, understanding more than his parents realized. They don't want Max to stay with us at the shelter. It wasn't a question. Noah had heard the adults talking in hushed tones last night after they had thought he was asleep. The community center had strict rules, no pets allowed, disease control, limited space, allergies. The excuses piled like the debris outside. Daniel knelt beside his son. It's complicated, buddy. Max needs medical care right now, and we don't even know if he belongs to someone who's looking for him. He doesn't, Noah said with absolute certainty. He was waiting for me. Before Daniel could respond, the door to the coordinator's office opened. Ms. Patel, a woman with kind eyes and a perpetually worried expression, gestured them inside. We need to discuss what happened last night, she said. Noah endured 30 minutes of gentle but firm admonishment about the dangers of wandering off alone, especially during a disaster. He nodded at appropriate intervals, apologized when necessary, but his thoughts remained with Max. Can I see him now? He asked the moment Ms. Patel finished speaking. The adults exchanged glances, that secret language Noah was learning to decode. Concern, hesitation, resignation. The mobile vet unit is set up near the east entrance, Ms. Patel finally said. Dr. Reynolds says the puppy is stable, but... But what? Noah demanded, dread pooling in his stomach. He's very weak, Noah, Sophia explained gently. Dr. Reynolds is doing everything she can. They walked through the community center toward the east entrance, Noah practically running ahead. Outside, several white tents had been erected for emergency services. The smallest bore a hand-painted sign, Animal Rescue. Dr. Reynolds met them at the entrance, her scrub spotted with what Noah immediately recognized as Max's fur. You must be Noah, she said, crouching to his level. I hear you're the hero who found our patient. Is he okay? Noah couldn't mask the tremor in his voice. The vet's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. He's a fighter. Come see for yourself. Inside the tent, medical equipment beeped softly. Cages lined one wall, most empty. Few pets had been recovered since the flood. In the center, on a metal examination table, lay a small form under a warming blanket. Noah approached slowly, afraid of what he might see. Max looked even smaller in the harsh fluorescent light, his fur shaved in patches where IVs and monitors connected to his body. But his eyes, those amber eyes flecked with gold, opened when Noah drew near. Hey, Max, Noah whispered, reaching out tentatively. Dr. Reynolds nodded permission, and Noah gently stroked the dog's head. Max's tail made a feeble attempt to wag. "He's severely dehydrated and malnourished," Dr. Reynolds explained to the adults. "Based on his condition, I'd estimate he was trapped for at least 3 weeks." 3 weeks? Sophia gasped. "That's impossible. He couldn't survive that long without water." Dr. Reynolds shrugged. "There must have been some moisture in the container. Condensation, perhaps, or a small leak. It's the only explanation." Noah knew better. Max had survived because he had to, because he was waiting to be found, waiting for Noah. "Will he get better?" he asked, his fingers still gentle on the puppy's head. Dr. Reynolds hesitated. "The next 48 hours are critical. He's young, probably not more than 4 months old, which works in his favor. German Shepherds are resilient. But I want to be honest with you, Noah, he's not out of danger yet." Noah nodded, a lump forming in his throat. "He doesn't make any noise," he said suddenly. "Why doesn't he bark or whine?" The vet frowned, checking something on her clipboard. "I noticed that. His vocal cords seem intact, but he hasn't made a sound since you brought him in. It could be trauma, or maybe—" She trailed off, then shook her head. "We'll run more tests." "He talks in other ways," Noah said. The adults exchanged those looks again, the ones that meant they thought he was making things up. But Noah knew what he had heard. Somehow, Max had called to him without making a sound, had guided him through the night to that metal prison. "Can he stay with us?" he asked, knowing the answer but needing to ask anyway. Daniel placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "The shelter doesn't allow—" "I'll make an exception." The new voice belonged to Ms. Patel, who had entered the tent silently. "For the animal's recovery period only." She looked at Noah's hopeful face and sighed. "The puppy can stay in the medical area. You can visit, but he can't come into the main sleeping quarters." Noah's face lit up. "Thank you. I promise I'll take care of him. He'll get better faster if I'm with him." "There's something else," Dr. Reynolds said, her expression thoughtful. "I found this embedded in his fur." She held up a small metal tag, caked with mud but still legible. "It's a service dog training identifier. This puppy was being trained for search and rescue work." Daniel took the tag, examining it closely. "There's a name here, Handler Nolan. Is there any way to locate the owner?" Dr. Reynolds shook her head. "We're checking the registry, but communications are still spotty. If he was in training, he must belong to someone." She glanced at Noah, who had gone very still. "I'm sorry, Noah. If we find the owner—" "Officer Nolan is dead," Noah interrupted, his voice distant. "He couldn't get out when the water came." Silence fell over the tent. All eyes turned to the small boy, whose face had gone pale. "Noah," Sophia said carefully, "how do you know that name?" Noah blinked, looking confused. I don't know. Max told me, I think." Another exchange of adult glances, this time tinged with alarm. "Why don't we get some breakfast?" Daniel suggested, his voice deliberately light. "Max needs to rest, and you must be starving after your adventure." Noah reluctantly allowed himself to be led away, looking back at the puppy until the tent flap closed between them. The connection remained, a thin thread stretching from his mind to Max's. And along that thread came feelings, gratitude, fear, and something else. A warning. Throughout the day, Noah returned to the medical tent as often as he was allowed. Each time, Max seemed slightly stronger, his eyes brighter, his tail a bit more enthusiastic. By evening, he was able to lap water from a shallow bowl, though food still had to be administered through a tube. "That's my brave boy," Noah encouraged, sitting cross-legged beside the examination table where Max rested. Dr. Reynolds watched from across the tent, making notes on her clipboard. "He seems to respond well to you," she observed. "His vital signs improve when you're here." Noah nodded, unsurprised. "We understand each other." As twilight deepened outside, a commotion at the main entrance of the community center drew everyone's attention. Noah heard raised voices, the squelch of radio transmissions, the heavy tread of boots on linoleum. Daniel appeared at the medical tent, his expression grave. "They found a body near the old bridge," he said quietly to Sophia, unaware that Noah was listening. "They think it's Officer James Nolan, the canine trainer from the police department." Noah felt a chill run down his spine. How had he known? He looked at Max, whose eyes were fixed on him with an intensity that belied his weakened state. "He couldn't save me," came the voice in Noah's head. Not words exactly, but impressions. Images of a man in uniform, water rising fast, the metal container door slamming shut in rushing currents. "Noah, are you okay?" Sophia's concerned voice broke through his thoughts. He nodded mechanically. Can Max sleep next to my bed tonight? More adult glances, but this time, something had shifted. Perhaps it was the confirmation of Noah's inexplicable knowledge, or maybe just the undeniable bond between boy and dog. Whatever the reason, permission was granted. That night, Max lay in a small nest of blankets beside Noah's makeshift bed. The puppy was still too weak to stand for long, but he had managed to lap up a small amount of broth, progress that Dr. Reynolds called remarkable. Max, Noah whispered when the lights had been dimmed, and the communal sleeping area had settled into the rhythm of soft snores and shifting bodies. How did you know my name? How did I hear you when no one else could? The puppy lifted his head slightly, those amber eyes reflecting what little light remained. Connection, came the impression. Not a word, but a feeling, like puzzle pieces clicking into place, meant to find. Noah drifted to sleep with his hand dangling over the edge of his mattress, fingertips just touching Max's fur. His dreams were strange, water rushing, a man shouting, a metal door slamming. And through it all, a presence beside him, guiding him, showing him things he couldn't possibly know. He awoke with a gasp just before dawn, the dream still vivid in his mind. Max was awake too, watching him with those knowing eyes. You're trying to tell me something, Noah whispered. About Officer Nolan? The dog's tail thumped once against the blanket. A rescue worker entered the gymnasium, moving quietly among the sleeping evacuees. Noah recognized him, the same man who had mentioned the storage container the day before. Acting on impulse, Noah called him over. "Excuse me," he said softly. "Did you know Officer Nolan, the one they found yesterday?" The man's eyebrows rose in surprise. "James? Sure, everyone knew him. Best canine trainer in 3 counties. He glanced at Max. "Is that why you asked about the container? You were looking for his dog?" Noah hesitated, uncertain how to explain. "Sort of. Did Officer Nolan live near here?" "Had a place by the river, one of the first to go under when the levee broke." The man's expression darkened. "James stayed behind to help evacuate his neighbors. That's the kind of guy he was." "Would you recognize his dog if you saw it?" Noah persisted. The rescue worker studied Max more carefully. James was training a new pup, German Shepherd, but it couldn't be. He peered at the tag Dr. Reynolds had found, which now hung from a makeshift collar around Max's neck. His eyes widened. "Well, I'll be damned. Sorry. Darn. That's James's tag. This is his dog." Noah nodded, a strange calm settling over him. "His name is Max." "No, the pup was called—" The worker stopped, frowning. "Actually, I don't remember what James called him. Max suits him, though." As the rescue worker moved on, Noah lay back down, processing this new information. Max inched closer, his warm body pressing against Noah's dangling hand. Safe now, came the impression. Together now. Yes, Noah agreed, sleep already reclaiming him. Together now. Always. When full morning arrived, Noah was surprised to find Max standing beside his bed, wobbly but upright. The puppy's recovery had accelerated overnight, astonishing Dr. Reynolds when she came to check on him. "I've never seen anything like it," she confessed, examining Max's improved vitals. "His blood work shows he's still severely malnourished, but his energy levels are those of a healthy puppy." "He had something to live for," Noah said simply. Throughout the day, news of the miracle puppy spread through the shelter. Children and adults alike came to visit, marveling at the dog who had survived weeks trapped in darkness. Max accepted their attention regally, but his eyes never strayed far from Noah. It was late afternoon when 2 police officers arrived at the community center, asking to speak with the family who had found Officer Nolan's service dog in training. They gathered in Ms. Patel's office, Daniel, Sophia, Noah, and Max, who refused to be separated from the boy. "We've confirmed the puppy's identity," the older officer said, his name badge reading Captain Martinez. "The microchip matches our records. This is definitely Nolan's dog." Noah's heart sank. He knew what was coming next. "Under normal circumstances, the animal would be returned to Officer Nolan's next of kin," Martinez continued. "However, we've learned that James had no immediate family. His emergency contact was the department itself." Hope flickered in Noah's chest. "Furthermore," Martinez added, consulting a folder, "according to Nolan's will, which was recovered this morning, any service animals in his care at the time of his death are to be placed with suitable handlers at the department's discretion." The second officer, A younger woman named Chen spoke up. James was very particular about his dogs. He believed they chose their handlers, not the other way around. She looked directly at Noah. From what we've heard, this puppy made his choice clear. Noah hardly dared breathe. Does that mean... Martinez nodded, a small smile breaking through his professional demeanor. Subject to certain conditions, and once your family has permanent housing again, the department is prepared to transfer ownership of the animal to you. Joy exploded through Noah like fireworks. He threw his arms around Max, who responded with the first sound Noah had heard him make, a small, happy whimper. There's something else, Officer Chen said, her expression turning serious. We found this among James's personal effects. She handed Daniel a small notebook, its pages water-stained but legible. It's his training journal for the puppy. You might find it interesting. Later that evening, with Max curled contentedly at his feet, Noah listened as his father read aloud from the journal. April 15th, the pup shows extraordinary sensitivity, Daniel read. Today he alerted to a hiker in distress half a mile away. No visual or audible cues. Vet says his hearing test's normal, nothing exceptional. It's something else, something I can't explain. He turned the page, eyebrows rising. April 28th, decided to call him Echo. Not because he repeats, because he seems to receive and transmit without sound. It's as if he can project his thoughts and pick up on others. The department would think I've lost my mind, but I've seen it too many times to doubt. Noah looked at Max, at Echo, with new understanding. That's how I heard him when no one else could. Daniel and Sophia exchanged glances, no longer dismissive but wondering. May 3rd, Daniel continued reading. Echo located a missing child today during training. Led me straight to her, though we were told she was in an entirely different sector. When I asked Echo how he knew, I swear he showed me. A flash in my mind of the girl falling, seeking shelter under a rocky overhang. I've worked with dogs all my life, but never experienced anything like this connection. The last entry was dated just 2 days before the flood. May 10th, storm warnings upgraded. Taking Echo home with me tonight instead of leaving him at the training facility. Something about this weather has him on edge. He keeps staring at the river, whining. If I didn't know better, I'd say he's trying to warn me. Daniel closed the journal, silence falling over the family. Outside, cleanup crews worked under floodlights. The sounds of reconstruction, a constant backdrop to their temporary lives. Do you think, Sophia began, then stopped, looking at Max with new eyes. Do you think it's possible, what Officer Nolan described? Before anyone could answer, Max lifted his head, amber eyes finding Noah's. And in that moment, a shared understanding passed between them. A silent communion that needed no words, no sound, no ordinary explanation. I called, came the impression. You heard. Yes, Noah whispered, reaching out to stroke the puppy's head. I heard you, even in the dark, even through walls and water and fear. He looked up at his parents, his expression serene and certain. And I always will. In that moment, as an improbable connection solidified between a boy and a dog who communicated beyond words, everyone present felt a shift, a sense that they were witnessing something rare and precious. Not just a rescue, but a reunion of souls somehow meant to find each other, even across impossible odds. Max, Echo, pressed his head against Noah's hand, his message clear to anyone watching. What had been broken was now mending, what had been lost was now found, and in the aftermath of destruction, something miraculous had emerged from the darkness. A week passed. The floodwaters receded, revealing a landscape forever altered. Streets once familiar now lay strewn with debris, memories and possessions reduced to mud-caked wreckage. But as the water withdrew, hope cautiously returned. The community center remained crowded, though fewer people arrived each day and more departed as areas were declared safe for return. Noah's family wasn't among them. Their apartment building had been condemned, the foundation compromised beyond repair. We'll find something soon, Daniel promised during breakfast, scrolling through rental listings on his phone, the screen reflected in his tired eyes. Maybe that duplex on Highland Street. Sophia sipped lukewarm coffee from a paper cup. Highland's good, close to your work, decent school district. She glanced at Noah, who sat cross-legged on the floor nearby, feeding Max small pieces of scrambled egg. And they allow pets. Noah looked up, his face brightening. Really? We can keep Max? Echo, Daniel corrected gently. Remember what Officer Nolan called him in the journal? Noah shook his head stubbornly. His name is Max now. That's what he told me. Another exchange of parental glances, no longer dismissive, but still uncertain how to navigate their son's insistence that he could communicate with the dog telepathically. Dr. Reynolds had deemed Max's recovery nothing short of miraculous. The puppy had gained weight, his coat regaining its luster where it hadn't been shaved for medical treatment. He still made no sound, no barks, whines, or growls, but his body language spoke volumes. And to Noah, his thoughts came through with increasing clarity. "Mom, Dad," Noah said, serious eyes moving between his parents. "Max belongs with me. We're a team now." Daniel set down his phone. "Noah, buddy, we've talked about this. We'll do everything we can to adopt Max, but there are procedures. The police department needs to—" "No, you don't understand," Noah interrupted, frustration edging his voice. "Max has something important to show us. Something about Officer Nolan." Sophia leaned forward. "What do you mean, sweetie?" Noah's brow furrowed in concentration. "I'm not sure exactly. Max keeps showing me pictures in my head. A house by the river, a room with lots of screens, papers with important writing." He looked down at the dog. "He says we need to find them before the cleanup crews do." Daniel and Sophia shared that look again, the one that meant they were trying to decide how seriously to take their son's claims. But recent events had softened their skepticism. The journal entries, Noah's knowledge of Officer Nolan before the body was found, the dog's inexplicable recovery. "Tell you what," Daniel said finally, "I'll talk to Captain Martinez this morning. He mentioned they're clearing out James's house this week. Maybe we can help." Noah smiled, relief flooding his face. "Thanks, Dad. It's really important." Max thumped his tail in agreement. Later that morning, Daniel returned with unexpected news. "Captain Martinez says we're welcome to join the cleanup at Officer Nolan's place. Apparently, James mentioned Noah in his last radio transmission before the flood hit." "What?" Sophia's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "How is that possible? They never met." Daniel shook his head, equally bewildered. "Martinez played me the recording. James was helping evacuate his street when the water surged. His last words were, 'Tell the boy who listens to find echo. He'll know what to do.'" A chill ran through the room, despite the warm May air filtering through open windows. "Noah," Sophia said carefully, "are you sure you never met Officer Nolan? Maybe at school or a community event?" Noah shook his head. "Never, but Max knows him." He rubbed the dog's ears. "Max says he was a good man. He tried to save everyone else before himself." That afternoon, a police cruiser transported the family to what remained of Officer Nolan's home, a modest ranch-style house on a quiet street near the river. The water had risen to the roofline during the flood's peak, but the structure had withstood the onslaught better than many of its neighbors. Captain Martinez met them in the driveway, which was still covered in a film of dried mud. "Most of the house is shot," he explained, leading them toward the front door. "Water damage, mold already setting in. But the attic stayed dry, and that's where James kept most of his canine training equipment." Inside, the devastation was evident. Furniture lay toppled and water-stained, personal belongings scattered like shipwreck debris. The smell of river mud and mildew permeated everything. Cleanup crews in masks and gloves worked methodically, separating salvageable items from ruined ones. Max tensed the moment they entered, his body quivering with recognition. Noah felt the flood of memories, not his own, washing through their connection. Home, handler, safe place. "You lived here," Noah whispered to the dog, "with Officer Nolan." "This way to the attic," Martinez directed, gesturing toward a pull-down ladder that had been extended from the ceiling. Daniel helped Noah climb the steep steps, Max following closely behind. The attic space was surprisingly large and well-organized, with storage containers neatly labeled and stacked. Unlike the chaos below, this room remained untouched by the flood. Max moved immediately to a metal filing cabinet, pawing at the bottom drawer. "He wants us to look in there," Noah explained, pointing. Martinez raised an eyebrow but nodded permission. Daniel knelt and pulled open the drawer, revealing hanging folders filled with documents. "Training records," he observed, flipping through them. "Certification papers for previous dogs. Medical records." But Max wasn't satisfied. He nudged Noah's leg, projecting an image of something hidden behind the cabinet. "There's something else," Noah said. "Something behind there." Martinez looked skeptical, but helped Daniel move the heavy cabinet a few inches from the wall. Behind it, revealed by flashlight beam, was a small safe embedded in the wall. I didn't know about this, Martinez admitted. James never mentioned a hidden safe. Code is my birthday, came Max's thought impression. An image formed in Noah's mind, a small tag with numbers. I think the code is Max's birthday, Noah suggested. Is there a dog tag or something with a date on it? Martinez pulled out his phone, scrolling through notes. According to the microchip registration, Max, was born January 8th this year, so 010824. Daniel tried the combination. Nothing happened. Try just the numbers, Noah suggested. 010824. The safe remained locked. Max projected another image, Officer Nolan entering numbers while saying something aloud. He's saying a word while he puts in the code, Noah interpreted, frustrated by the limitations of their unusual communication. A name, I think? Martinez snapped his fingers. James always used his dog's names as part of his security codes. Try Echo first, then the numbers. After a moment's thought, Daniel punched in 32460100824. With a soft click, the safe unlocked. Inside were several items: a USB drive, a leather-bound notebook, different from the one they'd already seen, and a small velvet box. Martinez carefully removed each item, placing them on a folding table that had been set up near the attic entrance. Department protocol says I should inventory these, he began, but Max growled, the first sound Noah had ever heard him make. For the boy who listens, came the urgent thought, not for others. Captain, Noah said, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. I think Officer Nolan wanted me to see these things first. Max says they're meant for the boy who listens. That's what Officer Nolan called me in his last message, right? Martinez hesitated, clearly torn between procedure and the inexplicable circumstances surrounding this child and the trained dog. I can give you a few minutes, he conceded, but anything pertaining to police business will need to be reviewed by the department. He stepped away, moving toward the attic entrance to speak with another officer. Noah immediately opened the leather notebook, Daniel and Sophia peering over his shoulders. The first page bore a simple dedication. For whoever Echo chooses next. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and he found you. Noah's throat tightened. He turned the page. I've been a canine handler for 15 years, the entry began. Trained dozens of dogs, but never one like Echo. At first, I thought I was losing my mind, hearing thoughts that weren't mine, seeing images I couldn't possibly know. The department psychologist would have a field day if I reported it. So, instead, I started documenting everything. The pages that followed detailed Officer Nolan's experiences with Max, with Echo, the dog's uncanny ability to locate missing persons by receiving their distress, his tendency to alert to dangers before they materialized, the growing telepathic bond that Nolan could neither explain nor deny. I'm not the first, one entry read. In researching Echo's bloodline, I found references to similar abilities dating back generations. The breeder called it the silent voice, a rare trait that emerges once every few decades. Not every handler can hear it. The connection requires a certain openness, sensitivity. Most adults lose the ability, but children can hear. Noah looked up at his parents, vindication in his eyes. See, I'm not making it up. We believe you, sweetie, Sophia said softly, her hand on his shoulder. The final entries were dated just before the flood. Storm warning upgraded again. Something's coming, something big. Echo won't settle, keeps trying to show me water, buildings collapsing. I've called in warnings to emergency services, but they think I'm overreacting. Maybe I am. Or maybe Echo sees what we can't. And the last entry, written in hasty, urgent script. No time, water rising faster than predicted. Echo keeps showing me a child, a boy I've never met. Dark hair, serious eyes. In Echo's visions, this boy finds him when I can't. If you're reading this, boy who listens, then Echo chose you for a reason. In the velvet box is something that belongs to you now. Echo is more than a dog, he's a guardian, and now he's yours. Noah's hands trembled as he reached for the small velvet box. Inside lay a silver medallion on a chain, engraved with a pattern of concentric circles resembling sound waves, and at the center, a perfectly rendered ear. The listener's medal, Daniel read from a small card tucked inside the box, awarded to those who hear what others cannot. Max nudged Noah's arm gently. Put it on. Noah slipped the chain over his head, the medallion resting against his chest. The metal felt unusually warm. Now we are truly connected, came Max's thought, clearer than ever before. Now I can show you everything. Show me what? Noah whispered. The others, the ones still waiting to be found. A rapid series of images flashed through Noah's mind. Other animals trapped by the flood, people stranded in collapsed buildings, a child huddled in an air pocket beneath debris, all waiting, calling silently for help. Noah gasped, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of information. There are more, he said urgently to his parents. More people and animals trapped. Max can hear them. Captain Martinez had returned and overheard the last part. What do you mean, son? Max can sense others in trouble, Noah tried to explain. Like how he called to me when he was trapped. There are more people out there, people the rescue teams haven't found. Martinez's expression wavered between doubt and desperate hope. 7 people remained unaccounted for in the flood's aftermath, despite days of searching. Can you? Martinez hesitated, clearly struggling with what he was about to ask. Can you tell us where they are? Noah looked to Max, who sat alert, head tilted as if listening to distant voices. I can show you, came the thought, but we must go together. Noah nodded, decision made. Max can lead us to them, but I need to go too. We work as a team. What followed was a hastily organized expedition. Noah and Max in a police cruiser with Captain Martinez, Daniel and Sophia following in another vehicle, and a rescue team trailing behind. Max directed them with his thoughts, Noah translating as they navigated the devastated landscape. Turn left here, Noah would say, or stop, it's somewhere close. At an area already searched twice by recovery teams, Max led them to a partial building collapse. He stood rigid, staring at a seemingly impenetrable mass of concrete and twisted metal. Underneath, still alive, fading. There's someone under there, Noah pointed. Max says they're still alive but getting weaker. The rescue team sprang into action, bringing detection equipment that soon confirmed a hollow space beneath the debris, and within it, faint life signs. 8 hours of careful excavation revealed a middle-aged woman, dehydrated and injured, but alive in a pocket of air that had saved her when her laundromat collapsed. The dog knew, she whispered, when she was finally pulled free. I kept dreaming about a dog calling to me, telling me to hold on. By day's end, Max and Noah had led rescue teams to 3 survivors and the remains of 2 others who hadn't made it, all in locations previously searched and cleared. The news outlets dubbed them The Boy Who Listens and His Miracle Dog, broadcasting their story nationwide. Back at the community center that evening, exhausted but fulfilled, Noah sat with Max on his cot, while Daniel and Sophia spoke with relief coordinators about housing options. We did good today, Noah murmured, stroking Max's fur. This is just the beginning, came the response. We were meant to find each other, to help others. Noah fingered the medallion around his neck. Officer Nolan knew, didn't he? He knew you'd find me. Max's amber eyes gleamed in the dim light. He saw it in dreams, the connection, the boy who would hear when no one else could. I miss him, Noah admitted, surprising himself. I never met him, but I feel like I knew him. You do know him. Max shifted, resting his head on Noah's lap. Through me, through memories. His courage lives on. Noah was quiet for a moment, processing this. Max, he finally asked, do you ever see him, like his spirit or something? The dog's eyes met his, a current of understanding passing between them. Sometimes, in dreams. He wears a long coat against the rain. He watches over us. A shiver ran down Noah's spine. Not fear, but wonder. The man in the raincoat, he whispered, the image suddenly clear in his mind. A tall figure, face kind but serious. A dark raincoat glistening with droplets that never seemed to dry. Yes. Max's tail thumped once against the blanket. He has messages sometimes, things he wants you to know. Like what? Like where to find the others who need us, the special ones. Special ones? Dogs like me, children like you, the ones who can hear the silent voice. Noah felt a strange tingle of anticipation, as if standing on the threshold of something vast and unknown. There are others like us? Scattered, waiting to be found, connected by the thread that binds all who listen beyond sound. A volunteer approached, carrying a tray with dinner. Noah accepted it absently, his mind still processing Max's revelation. "You two have had quite a day," the volunteer remarked. "You're all over the news, the boy and his psychic dog." Noah forced a smile, not bothering to correct the mischaracterization. How could he explain that it wasn't psychic ability, but something deeper, a connection that transcended ordinary communication? After dinner, as the community center settled into evening routines, a stranger approached the family's section. He was older, with silver hair and kind eyes, wearing the uniform of a canine unit from a neighboring county. "Excuse me," he said, addressing Daniel and Sophia. "I'm Sergeant Williams. I was a friend of James Nolan." His gaze shifted to Max, recognition and wonder crossing his features. "So it's true. Echo survived." "We call him Max now," Noah said, protective hand on the dog's back. Williams nodded respectfully. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward Max. Noah hesitated, then nodded permission. The sergeant knelt, examining Max with professional appreciation. "James told me about this pup," Williams said quietly. "Said he was special, different from any dog he'd trained before." He looked at Noah. "And he mentioned you too, not by name, but he said Echo was waiting for someone, a child who could hear what others missed." Noah's hand unconsciously touched the medallion beneath his shirt. "You believe in it? The silent voice?" Williams smiled sadly. "I've been training dogs for 30 years, son. There are things I've seen that can't be explained by science or standard training techniques. James was the same, open to possibilities beyond what most people accept." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a business card. "When you're ready, when you and Max are ready, call me. There are others who should meet you." The circle widens, came Max's thought as Williams departed. "The man in the raincoat is pleased." That night, Noah dreamed of Officer Nolan for the first time. They stood together on a riverbank, not the devastating flood, but a peaceful stream gleaming in moonlight. The officer wore his raincoat despite the clear night sky. "You found him," Nolan said, voice warm with approval, "when I couldn't save him." "He found me, really?" Noah replied. "He called until I heard him." Nolan nodded, a smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "That's how it works. The connection goes both ways." He gestured toward the medallion around Noah's neck. "There are responsibilities that come with that. People and animals who need you." "I know," Noah said. "Max is showing me." "Echo was my last partner," Nolan continued. "My legacy. Now he's yours." His expression grew serious. "There's something else you need to find, something I hid when the waters were rising." "What is it?" "A room few know about. A place where the silent voices gather and amplify. Echo knows the way." The dream shifted, showing Noah a crawl space behind a hidden panel, accessible only to someone small. Within it, a door leading to... Noah woke with a gasp, the dream vivid in his mind. Beside him, Max lay alert, amber eyes gleaming in the darkness. "You saw it," came the thought, not a question. "The hidden room," Noah whispered, "behind Officer Nolan's house. He showed it to me in the dream." "Tomorrow," Max projected, laying his head back down. "Tomorrow, we find it." As Noah drifted back to sleep, the medallion warm against his skin, he felt a certainty he couldn't explain, that his life had irreversibly changed the moment he heard Max's silent cry. They were bound now, tasked with a purpose greater than either could fulfill alone. And somewhere, watching over them both, a man in a raincoat waited to guide their path. Morning arrived with clear skies and a sense of purpose. Noah woke early, the medallion still warm against his chest, the dream of Officer Nolan vivid in his memory. Max sat alert beside him, as if he hadn't slept at all. "Today we find it," came the thought, clear and determined. Over breakfast, Noah explained his dream to his parents, describing the hidden room behind Officer Nolan's house with such detail that even the most skeptical observer would have paused. "It's behind a panel in the kitchen," he said, spreading jam on his toast. "You have to remove the baseboards first, then push on the wall in a certain spot. There's a crawl space big enough for a kid, but too small for most adults." Daniel exchanged a look with Sophia. After yesterday's successful rescue operations, their skepticism had largely evaporated, replaced by a cautious acceptance of their son's inexplicable connection with Max. "And you think Officer Nolan left something important in this hidden room?" Daniel asked. Noah nodded, mouth full of toast. "In my dream, he said it was where the silent voices gather and amplify. Max knows what it means." "A place of connection," Max projected. "A hub for those who listen." We should call Captain Martinez, Sophia suggested. After yesterday, I think he'll listen. An hour later, they were back at Officer Nolan's flood-damaged house. Martinez had arranged for the cleanup crew to take a break, giving them privacy for what he diplomatically called the boys' exploration. If he had doubts about a child's dream leading them to a discovery, he kept them to himself. The kitchen was here, Martinez explained, gesturing to a water-stained room where appliances sat at odd angles, pushed around by the force of the flood. Most of the drywall will need to be replaced anyway, so if you think there's something behind it... Noah moved with confidence, Max at his heels. In his dream, the hidden panel had been located behind the refrigerator. The appliance had been moved during cleanup, revealing a section of wall that looked no different from any other, except to Noah's dream-educated eyes. Here, he said, kneeling to examine the baseboard. There should be a small gap. Yes! His fingers found a nearly invisible seam, where the baseboard met the floor differently than surrounding areas. Daniel knelt beside him, feeling along the edge. You're right. This section seems designed to be removed. With gentle pressure, the baseboard panel popped free, revealing a recessed handle. Noah pulled, and a 2-foot square section of wall swung outward like a tiny door. I'll be damned, Martinez muttered, then quickly apologized for his language. Beyond the opening lay a narrow passage, a crawl space running between walls, just as Noah had seen in his dream. It was dirty and cobwebbed, but untouched by floodwater due to its elevation. It's too small for adults, Noah said, peering into the darkness. Max and I need to go alone. Predictably, this suggestion met with parental resistance. Absolutely not, Sophia began. We don't know if it's structurally sound or... I can fit, Daniel interrupted, getting down on his hands and knees to assess the opening. After a moment, he shook his head. No, it's too narrow for my shoulders. But, Noah... I have to go, Noah insisted. Officer Nolan showed me this for a reason. After further negotiation, a compromise was reached. Noah would enter the crawl space with Max, wearing a helmet with a mounted light borrowed from the rescue team. A rope would be tied around his waist, with his father holding the other end. If anything felt unsafe, he would tug twice and be pulled back immediately. Be careful, Sophia whispered, adjusting the helmet on Noah's head. No unnecessary risks. Noah nodded solemnly. I promise. With Max leading the way, Noah crawled into the passage. It was tight but navigable, extending about 15 feet before turning sharply left. The air was stale but breathable, the space untouched by the flood that had devastated the rest of the house. Almost there, Max projected, his body language tense with anticipation. The passage ended at what appeared to be a solid wall. Noah played his helmet light across the surface, looking for any indication of a door or panel. There's nothing here, he called back, disappointment creeping into his voice. Look with more than eyes, came Max's thought. Remember the medallion. Noah's hand went to the silver disc hanging around his neck. It felt unusually warm against his palm. Acting on instinct, he pressed it against the wall in front of him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft click sounded, and a section of wall, professionally camouflaged to match its surroundings, swung inward. Whoa, Noah breathed. Beyond lay a small room, perhaps 8 feet square, untouched by the flood and time. The walls were lined with acoustic panels, giving it the feel of a recording studio. Computer equipment sat on a desk along one wall, alongside multiple monitors currently dark without power. Filing cabinets occupied another wall, while a third held what appeared to be specialized radio equipment. Most striking, however, was the center of the room. There, a raised platform held a circular cushion, clearly a dog bed, surrounded by a ring of peculiar devices that resembled satellite dishes, all pointed inward. I found it! Noah called back, his voice echoing strangely in the acoustically engineered space. It's like a secret command center or something! Max padded directly to the circular dog bed, turning in place before settling into a position that seemed familiar to him. The moment he did, Noah felt a strange sensation, a humming vibration from the medallion against his chest, and a sudden clarity to Max's projected thoughts. This is where we trained, came the impression, stronger than ever before, where Officer Nolan helped me focus the silent voice. Noah moved to the desk, examining the equipment. Without power, the computers remained silent, but a waterproof case tucked underneath caught his attention. Inside, he found USB drives, each labeled meticulously. Echo, Training Session 1, Echo, Range Test, Echo, multiple subject test. "Dad," Noah called, "I think I found recordings of Max's training." On another shelf, he discovered a notebook, a detailed log of experiments and training sessions. Flipping through it revealed Officer Nolan's methodical documentation of Max's unusual abilities. Echo successfully detected emotional distress in Subject C, located in the basement 2 floors down, without auditory or visual cues. Range, approximately 30 meters through multiple barriers. Echo alerted to Subject E's negative emotional state, fear response induced by controlled stimulus, from a distance of 100 meters in open field conditions. No line of sight, no auditory cues possible. Breakthrough, the amplification array increases Echo's receptive range by approximately 300%. With the array active, he detected Subject A's location while blindfolded from a distance of 0.5 kilometers. Noah looked up at the satellite-like devices surrounding Max's cushion. "The amplification array," he murmured. "That's what these are for." As if in response to his words, the medallion against his chest grew warmer. Max lifted his head, amber eyes fixed on Noah with preternatural intensity. "Put it in the center," came the thought. "Complete the circuit." Noah hesitated, then removed the medallion from around his neck. At the center of the circular dog bed was a small depression that seemed perfectly sized for the silver disc. He placed it there, then stepped back. Nothing happened at first. Then, despite the lack of electrical power in the house, tiny lights on the amplification array began to glow, faint at first, then brighter. A low hum filled the room, more felt than heard. Max stood, body tense, head raised as if listening to distant voices. Noah felt it too, a sudden expansion of awareness, as if his consciousness had stretched beyond the confines of his body. Whispers filled his mind, not words but impressions, emotions, calls for help, some faint, some stronger, human and animal alike, connected by a common thread: need. "Now you understand," Max projected, the thought crystal clear amid the symphony of silent voices. "This is what I hear always, what Officer Nolan helped me filter and focus." "It's overwhelming," Noah whispered, steadying himself against the desk as the voices threatened to drown his own thoughts. "You learn to control it," Max assured him, "to listen selectively, to hear what matters most." The humming increased in pitch, the lights on the array growing brighter. The voices in Noah's mind clarified, resolving into distinct impressions, each a beacon of emotion calling across distance. One voice rose above the others, familiar somehow, though Noah couldn't place it. A presence that felt like Officer Nolan, but different, younger, connected to him in some undefined way. "She is important," Max projected. Another listener. "She needs to be found." "Who?" Noah asked, struggling to focus on the specific impression. Before Max could answer, the humming abruptly ceased. The lights on the array dimmed and went dark. The medallion, when Noah retrieved it from the center of the cushion, felt cool against his palm. "What happened?" he asked. "Temporary connection," Max explained. "Without full power, the array can only function briefly, but it was enough." "Enough for what?" "To show you what we're meant to do, to help you hear the others who need us." Noah carefully replaced the medallion around his neck, gathering the notebooks and USB drives into the waterproof case. "We need to show this to Dad and Captain Martinez." "Yes," Max agreed, "but not everything will be understood. Some secrets must remain between listeners." Before leaving the hidden room, Noah took one last look around, committing the strange setup to memory. This had been Officer Nolan's sanctuary, a place where he explored abilities beyond ordinary explanation, beyond what his police colleagues would have understood or accepted. "Thank you for showing me," Noah whispered, unsure if he was addressing Max or the lingering presence of Officer Nolan himself. The return journey through the crawlspace seemed shorter. Noah emerged into the kitchen with the waterproof case clutched to his chest, Max following close behind. "You were right," he told the waiting adults, excitement overriding his fatigue. "There was a hidden room. Officer Nolan built a special place to train Max and document his abilities." Captain Martinez examined the notebooks and drives with professional interest, while Daniel and Sophia listened to Noah's description of the room's contents. He described everything, except the temporary activation of the array and the voices it had revealed. That part felt private somehow, meant only for those who could truly understand. "James always was unconventional in his training methods," Martinez admitted, flipping through one of the notebooks. This explains the special budget requests he submitted last year for experimental communication equipment. The department approved it because his results were undeniable, even if his methods seemed unorthodox. After securing the house once more, they returned to the community center, the waterproof case now officially logged as evidence but temporarily entrusted to Noah's family for review. Martinez had been sufficiently impressed by their discoveries to grant this unusual permission. That evening, using a laptop borrowed from the relief organization, Daniel connected one of the USB drives. The screen filled with video footage of a younger Max, Echo, seated in the center of the amplification array while Officer Nolan conducted various tests. Subject is located in room 3, second floor, Nolan's voice came through the speakers. Echo has had no visual or auditory contact. Subject is experiencing induced anxiety due to controlled test parameters. On screen, the puppy's head turned sharply toward a specific direction, body language alert and focused despite the lack of obvious stimuli. Target acquired, Nolan noted, checking his watch. Time to acquisition, 3.2 seconds. Distance, approximately 40 meters through multiple walls. Response is consistent with previous trials. Noah watched, fascinated by this scientific documentation of abilities he had experienced firsthand. Max lay beside him, occasionally offering silent commentary that enriched the viewing. He was a good teacher, came the impression, as Officer Nolan praised the puppy on screen, patient, believing when others doubted. More videos revealed the progression of their training, Max learning to differentiate between types of distress, to locate specific individuals in complex environments, to communicate his findings to Officer Nolan through an evolving system of behavioral cues. "It's incredible," Sophia murmured, watching Max on screen lead Nolan directly to a hidden subject in a training exercise. "He really can sense things that others can't." "Not just sense," Noah corrected. "Communicate. That's what makes Max special. He can put thoughts and feelings into my head, and I think he could do it with Officer Nolan too, just not as clearly." Daniel paused the video, turning to face his son. "Noah, what you and Max did yesterday, finding those survivors when professional teams couldn't, that can't be explained by conventional training. I believe you now about this connection you share." He gestured to the screen. James Nolan believed it too. He documented it scientifically, as best he could. "So, what happens now?" Sophia asked the question they had all been avoiding. "The community center is temporary. We need to find permanent housing, and then there's the question of officially adopting Max." Noah clutched the medallion through his shirt. "Max belongs with me," he said firmly. "We're a team now." Before anyone could respond, Ms. Patel approached their table, her expression apologetic. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to discuss your housing situation. The center will be closing in 3 days as the emergency phase of operations winds down." She slid a folder across the table. "These are your options for temporary housing assistance. Unfortunately, none of the available units allow pets." Her gaze flickered to Max. "Given the special circumstances, I've included information about animal foster programs that could care for him until you secure pet-friendly housing." Noah's face fell, his connection with Max flooding with shared distress. The thought of separation, even temporary, felt unbearable. "That won't be necessary," came a new voice. They turned to find Sergeant Williams, the K-9 officer who had visited them the previous day, standing nearby. "I've spoken with my department and Captain Martinez," Williams continued. "Given the exceptional nature of this situation and the clear public benefit demonstrated yesterday, we'd like to offer a solution." He pulled up a chair, joining their table. "The county maintains several residences for law enforcement personnel in training rotations. One is currently vacant, a small house about 20 minutes from here. It's nothing fancy, but it's furnished, above the flood zone, and most importantly, designed for officers with K-9 partners." Noah could scarcely breathe, hope blooming in his chest. "We're proposing that your family occupy the residence temporarily, say for 3 months, while Noah and Max undergo a specialized training program with our K-9 unit. It would be classified as a special deputy program, with appropriate stipends to help you get back on your feet." Daniel looked stunned. "That's incredibly generous, but we couldn't possibly—" "It's not charity," Williams interrupted firmly. "What we witnessed yesterday was extraordinary. 3 lives saved by a boy and a dog with abilities our conventional methods couldn't match. That has value. operational, practical value to our emergency services. He turned to Noah. You and Max have a gift. We'd like to help you develop it, understand it better, put it to use helping others. The housing is simply a practical necessity to facilitate that. Noah looked at Max, their silent communication requiring no translation. The prospect of purpose, of belonging, of using their connection to help others, it filled their shared awareness with rightness. What about school? Sophia asked pragmatically. Noah's education. The program would work around school hours, Williams assured her. After school and weekends primarily. And given the circumstances, I imagine his current school would approve an extended absence or remote learning arrangement while your family resettles. Daniel reached for Sophia's hand, their eyes meeting in silent consultation. After a moment, she nodded slightly. We'd need to see the house first, Daniel said cautiously, and understand exactly what this training program would entail. Of course, Williams agreed readily. Captain Martinez can provide full details tomorrow, but tonight, his gaze moved to Noah and Max. Tonight, I thought you might want to know that your housing situation won't separate you two. You've been through enough already. After Williams departed, promised details in hand, the family sat in stunned silence. Their situation, so desperate just hours before, had transformed through what Sophia murmured might be divine intervention, or perhaps intervention of a more earthly but equally watchful guardian. That night, as Noah prepared for bed, he felt a familiar warmth from the medallion against his skin. Max lay beside his cot, amber eyes reflecting the dim emergency lighting. The man in the raincoat is pleased, came the impression. He watches over us still. Do you think Officer Nolan arranged this somehow? Noah whispered. Even after he was gone? Max's response came as a series of impressions rather than distinct thoughts. Officer Nolan speaking with Sergeant Williams months ago, contingency plans, quiet preparations for a future he somehow sensed might come. He knew his time was limited, Max conveyed. He prepared the way. Noah's hand found the medallion, its metal warm and comforting. I wish I could have met him. For real, I mean. Not just in dreams. You know him through me, Max reminded him. Through the connections he fostered. Through the path he prepared. Do you think there are others? Noah asked, returning to the impression he had received in the hidden room. Other listeners? Other dogs like you? Max's tail thumped once against the floor. Yes. Scattered. Waiting to be found. Connected by the thread that binds all who listen beyond sound. And we'll find them, Noah murmured, certainty filling him. Not a question, but a destiny unfolding before them. That's what the man in the raincoat wants us to do next. Yes, Max agreed, his thought accompanied by a surge of purpose. But first, we learn, we train, we grow stronger together. As sleep claimed him, Noah's dreams were filled with silent voices calling across distance. Some in distress, some in greeting, all connected by an invisible web that he was only beginning to perceive. Among them, watching over all, moved a tall figure in a raincoat that never quite dried, guiding, protecting, preparing the way for what was to come. The next morning, while his parents consulted with Captain Martinez about the details of Williams's offer, Noah sat with Max in a quiet corner of the community center. The medallion hung visible outside his shirt now, a symbol of an identity he was gradually accepting. I've been thinking, he said quietly to Max, about what we're supposed to do, about being listeners. Tell me, Max encouraged, head tilted attentively. It's not just about rescues, is it? Not just finding people trapped or lost. It's bigger than that. Max's amber eyes seemed to glow with approval. Yes, much bigger. The silent voice. It's a way of connecting what's broken, bridging gaps between people and animals, between those who need help and those who can provide it. Noah's young face grew serious beyond his years. There are lots of ways to be lost, lots of ways to need rescue. Yes, Max agreed. Officer Nolan understood this. It's why he searched for someone who could hear beyond his own limitations. Why he prepared for a time when he would be gone. Noah absently stroked the medallion. We're part of something bigger, aren't we? Something that was happening before us and will continue after. Rather than answering directly, Max shared an impression, a network of connections spanning time and space, listeners and their companions working in quiet harmony, guided by those who had gone before, preparing the way for those yet to come. It was overwhelming and comforting at once. this sense of belonging to something larger than himself. Noah felt simultaneously very small and immensely important, a single thread in a vast tapestry, yet essential to its pattern. "I'm ready," he said finally, a quiet determination settling over him. "Whatever comes next, whatever we're supposed to do, I'm ready." Max pressed against his side, their connection humming with shared resolve. Together, came the thought. Always together. From across the room, Noah caught his parents watching him, their expressions a mixture of wonder, pride, and lingering concern. They were part of this journey too, he realized. Not listeners in the same way, perhaps, but essential supporters of the path unfolding before him. Soon they would leave this temporary shelter. Soon they would begin a new chapter in the house prepared for them, training, learning, growing into the role that Officer Nolan had envisioned. And beyond that, the silent voices waited, some in need, some in greeting, all connected by a bond that transcended ordinary communication. Noah smiled, hand resting on Max's head, the medallion warm against his chest. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The boy who listened, and the dog who called to him through darkness, bound by a connection that even death could not sever. And somewhere, watching over them both, a man in a raincoat smiled in approval. 3 months passed like a dream, a time of transformation and growth. The small house provided by the police department became home, its walls adorned with Noah's drawings of Max and certificates from their training sessions. The modest backyard, fenced and secure, offered Max space to run while Noah completed his schoolwork through a remote learning program. The training itself was unlike anything the county's K-9 unit had seen before. Sergeant Williams had assembled a small, dedicated team, officers sworn to confidentiality about the true nature of the program. On paper, it was classified as experimental communication techniques for search and rescue operations. In practice, it was an exploration of abilities that defied conventional explanation. Noah and Max thrived under this structured development of their gifts. Each day brought new challenges, exercises to extend the range of their telepathic connection, tests to refine Max's sensitivity to different emotional states, training to help Noah filter the overwhelming input when their abilities were at full strength. Most remarkable was the medallion, the listener's medal that Officer Nolan had left for Noah. Through careful experimentation, they discovered its properties. It served as both amplifier and focus for their unusual connection, growing warm when important communications were being transmitted, cooling when silence was needed. "It's like an antenna," Noah tried to explain to his parents one evening after a particularly successful training session. "It helps tune in the silent voices, makes them clearer." Even more intriguing were the components salvaged from Officer Nolan's hidden room. Williams had arranged for the amplification array to be secretly reconstructed in a secure facility at the K-9 Training Center. Powered and properly calibrated, it expanded Max's receptive range exponentially, allowing him to detect distress signals from miles away. September arrived with cooling breezes and the gradual restoration of normalcy to the flood-ravaged community. Noah's family had settled into their temporary home, Daniel finding work at a construction company rebuilding the town, Sophia taking a position at the emergency management office, her experience during the disaster proving invaluable to recovery planning. But normalcy for Noah and Max now included their special role. Chiefs they had been called upon for official search operations. Once to locate an elderly man with dementia who had wandered into dense woods. Once to find a child who had become separated from a hiking group in the state park. Both missions successful, both officially attributed to advanced canine tracking techniques. The unofficial truth remained known only to a select few. On a golden afternoon in late September, Noah sat on the back porch steps, Max beside him, both enjoying the warm sunlight. The medallion hung openly around Noah's neck now, no longer a secret but a badge of office, a symbol of responsibility. "We're getting better at this," Noah remarked, scratching Max behind the ears. "Williams says we're already outperforming his best tracking teams." Max's tail swept the wooden steps in acknowledgement. "We are meant for this work," came his thought, clear and confident. "The connection grows stronger with use." Noah nodded, having accepted the reality of their telepathic communication as simply part of his new normal. "I've been thinking about something," he said after a moment's hesitation. "About the other listener we sensed that day in Officer Nolan's secret room. The girl." Max's ears perked forward, his amber eyes fixing on Noah's face.
Do you think we could find her? If we use the amplification array at full power?
Perhaps, Max allowed. But finding is not the same as connecting. She must be ready, open to the possibility.
Like I was, Noah mused.
Yes, you heard me when no one else could because you were open to hearing. Not everyone listens for the silent voice. Before Noah could respond, the medallion against his chest grew suddenly warm. Max stiffened, head turning toward the east, body language shifting to high alert. Something comes, he projected, the thought tinged with unease. What's wrong? Noah asked, immediately concerned. He'd learned to trust Max's warnings without question. Not wrong, different, a shift in the pattern. The man in the raincoat calls. Noah closed his eyes, instinctively placing his hand over the medallion, focusing as he'd been taught. At first, he perceived nothing unusual, just the ambient emotional currents of the neighborhood, familiar patterns he'd learned to filter. Then, at the edge of his awareness, something new. A presence both strange and familiar, moving closer. His eyes snapped open. Someone's coming. Someone like us? As if in answer, a car turned onto their street, an unfamiliar sedan with government plates. It parked directly in front of their house, and from it emerged Sergeant Williams, accompanied by a woman Noah had never seen before. She wore a formal suit that marked her as some kind of official, her expression guarded but curious. Most striking, however, was the child who emerged from the back seat, a girl about Noah's age, with serious eyes and a determined set to her jaw. And at her side, alert and watchful, patted a border collie whose intelligent gaze immediately found Max. Connection, came Max's thought, vibrating with recognition. Another pair, another team. Noah stood, the medallion now almost hot against his skin. An inexplicable certainty filled him. This meeting was no coincidence but a convergence long prepared. "Noah," Sergeant Williams called as they approached the yard, "there's someone I'd like you to meet." Introductions were made on the front lawn. The woman was Dr. Eleanor Reed, a behavioral scientist with a specialized government program. The girl was Lily Chen, 12 years old, recently relocated from Arizona, following what was diplomatically termed an incident involving her dog, Scout. Lily and Scout have been demonstrating some unusual abilities, Dr. Reed explained carefully, her eyes taking in the medallion hanging openly around Noah's neck. Sergeant Williams thought you might have insights to share. Noah and Lily regarded each other with the wariness of children meeting for the first time, yet underlaid with a current of recognition that transcended ordinary acquaintance. Meanwhile, Max and Scout circled each other in a silent communication that needed no human interpretation. "You can hear him, can't you?" Noah asked directly. "In your head. Scout talks to you without making sounds." Lily's eyes widened slightly, her guard dropping for the first time. "How did you know?" "Because Max talks to me too." "I told you," Williams said to Dr. Reed, satisfaction evident in his voice. "They're part of the same phenomenon, just like James Nolan theorized." While the adults moved to the porch to discuss implications and possibilities, Noah led Lily to the backyard, their dogs following close behind. Away from adult supervision, the children's natural curiosity quickly overcame lingering hesitation. "When did it start for you?" Lily asked, sitting cross-legged on the grass. Hearing Scout. Noah settled beside her. "During the flood. Max was trapped in a shipping container. No one else could hear him crying for help, but I could." He touched the medallion absently. "What about you?" "Last year, there was a fire in our apartment building. Everyone got out except old Mr. Guzman on the 3rd floor. He was sleeping, didn't hear the alarms." Lily's voice grew quieter. "Scout started going crazy, trying to tell me someone was still inside. I just knew what he was saying, knew where Mr. Guzman was." "You saved him?" Lily nodded. "The firefighters wouldn't listen to me at first, thought I was just a panicked kid, but I wouldn't stop, and finally, one of them checked the apartment I kept pointing to." A small smile touched her lips. They got him out just before the ceiling collapsed. As the children shared their experiences, Max and Scout engaged in their own form of communication, a silent exchange of impressions and memories that bypassed human language entirely. Occasionally, fragments of this exchange reached Noah through his connection with Max, images of other dogs, other listeners, scattered across time and distance. "There are more of us, aren't there?" Noah asked. voicing the realization that had been building since their meeting with Williams 3 months ago. Dr. Reed says there have always been people who could communicate with animals in special ways, Lily confirmed. But it's rare, and most people either hide it or don't understand what's happening. Until now, Noah said, the weight of the medallion suddenly significant. Until someone decided to bring us together. Lily's expression turned thoughtful. Dr. Reed mentioned someone named Nolan, said he was the first to document the connection scientifically to prove it wasn't just coincidence or good training. Officer Nolan, Noah corrected softly. He was Max's first handler. He died in the flood, but he hesitated, uncertain how much to reveal. Sometimes I still see him, in dreams, wearing a raincoat. Rather than skepticism, Lily's face showed recognition. I see a woman, she admitted, older, with silver hair. She shows me things about Scout, about our connection. Dr. Reed says she was a famous animal behaviorist who first identified the silent voice phenomenon back in the 1970s. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the yard as their conversation deepened, each revelation building a bridge between their separate experiences. They discovered shared challenges, the overwhelming nature of unfiltered emotional input, the responsibility of abilities others didn't understand, the struggle to balance normal childhood with extraordinary perception. Do you ever wish it hadn't happened? Lily asked during a lull, that you were just normal? Noah considered the question, his hand finding Max's fur. No, he answered finally. It's hard sometimes, and scary, but Max and I help people. We make a difference. He looked at her directly. Don't you feel that way too? Before Lily could answer, the medallion against Noah's chest suddenly pulsed with warmth. At the same moment, both dogs stood in perfect synchronization, heads turning toward the street, bodies tense with alertness. Listen, came Max's urgent thought. Someone calls. Noah closed his eyes, focusing through the medallion as he'd been taught. Lily, sensing something important happening, fell silent beside him. For a moment, there was nothing but the ambient emotional static of the neighborhood. Then, faint but distinct, a pulse of distress, not immediate danger, but growing concern, tinged with fear and confusion. There's someone, Noah began. North of here, Lily finished, her eyes also closed in concentration, about a mile, in the woods behind the old recreation center. The children looked at each other in surprise and confirmation. Somehow, they had both perceived the same distress signal, a child, alone, and increasingly frightened as evening approached. We should tell the adults, Noah said, already rising to his feet. No time, Lily countered. It'll be dark soon, and they'll want to call it in officially, get a search team organized. By then, she let the implication hang in the air. Noah hesitated, torn between responsible action and the clear urgency transmitted through his connection with Max. The dog nudged his hand insistently. We can find the lost one. Together our strength doubles. A decision crystallized. We'll go, Noah said firmly, but we leave a note so they know where to look if we're not back soon. Minutes later, having left a hastily scribbled message on the kitchen counter, the children set off on bikes, Noah on his, Lily borrowing Sophia's. Max and Scout ran alongside, their movements perfectly coordinated, leading the way toward the source of the distress call only they could hear. The recreation center had been closed since the flood, its playing fields overgrown, its building awaiting renovation funds. Behind it stretched a wooded area, not deep forest, but substantial enough for a child to become disoriented, especially as daylight waned. They left their bikes at the edge of the trees, following the dogs who moved with increasing purpose, the silent communication between them creating a unified tracking system more efficient than any conventional search method. He's close, Lily murmured, her connection with Scout providing real-time updates. Scared, trying to find his way out but going in circles. There, Noah pointed, spotting a flash of red through the trees, a child's jacket. The lost boy couldn't have been more than 7, his face tear-streaked and dirty, his expression transforming from fear to confusion to relief as he spotted the approaching children and dogs. Are you looking for me? He asked, voice small in the gathering twilight. I was playing hide and seek, but everyone went home. I got turned around. It's okay, Noah assured him, kneeling to the child's level. We heard you needed help. How? I didn't call out. I was trying to be brave. Lily and Noah exchanged glances over the boy's head. Let's just say we're good at finding people who need to be found, Lily offered with a gentle smile. The journey back was straightforward, Max and Scout leading confidently through the deepening shadows. By the time they emerged from the woods, flashlight beams were sweeping the recreation center grounds. The adults had found their note and mobilized a response. What followed was a blur of explanations, relieved parents, congratulations, and the inevitable mixture of pride and concern from Noah's parents. Through it all, the children maintained the simple story they had agreed upon. Their dogs had somehow sensed someone needed help, and they had followed their instincts. The fuller truth remained between them, a shared secret cemented by shared experience. Later that evening, after Lily and her entourage had departed with promises of future collaboration, Noah sat on the porch steps with Max, processing the day's revelations. "There are others like us," he said quietly, "a network, just like you showed me, and we found each other." "As we were meant to," Max confirmed. "The circle widens, the connections strengthen." The man in the raincoat, Officer Nolan, he knew this would happen, didn't he? He was preparing for it, even before he died. Max's response came as a series of impressions rather than distinct thoughts. Officer Nolan working late into the night in his hidden room, corresponding with researchers like Dr. Reed, documenting findings for future listeners, creating the medallion as a focus and symbol. He saw further than others, prepared the way. Noah fingered the medallion thoughtfully. And now it's our turn. To find others. To help them understand their gifts. To use our connection to help people. Yes. Max's amber eyes reflected the porch light, giving them an almost supernatural glow. This is only the beginning. From inside the house came the sound of his parents talking with Sergeant Williams, their conversation animated but positive. Noah caught fragments. Specialized program, proper training, potential for expanded operations. The adults were catching up to what he and Max had known from the start. They were part of something larger, something important. "I wonder how many others are out there," Noah mused. "How many listeners and their companions, waiting to be found?" "Many," came Max's certainty. "Some know their gifts but hide them. Some have not yet awakened to their potential. Some wait for the call that will connect them to the network." The night deepened around them, stars emerging in a clear autumn sky. In that moment of quiet contemplation, Noah felt a familiar presence, not physically there, but undeniably real, the man in the raincoat, watching over them still. "What happens next?" Noah asked softly, unsure whether he was addressing Max or the spectral guardian he could sense but not see. "We continue the work," Max answered simply. "We find those who need us. We build the network. We listen for those who call in silence." Noah nodded, a sense of purpose settling over him. 6 months ago, he had been an ordinary child with ordinary concerns. Now he wore a medallion that marked him as part of an ancient lineage, those who could hear beyond sound, who bridged the gap between human and animal consciousness, who perceived distress calls that others missed. It was a responsibility, yes, but also a gift, one that had brought him Max, had saved lives, had connected him to others who shared his unique perception of the world. "I'm ready," he whispered into the night. The medallion warmed against his chest in acknowledgement, and beside him, Max pressed closer in silent companionship. As if in answer to his declaration, a faint impression touched Noah's mind, distant yet distinct, a silent voice calling across miles of darkness. Not urgent distress, but a tentative reaching out, like a hand extended in greeting, or a question asked in hope of response. Noah looked at Max, who had already risen to his feet, amber eyes fixed on the eastern horizon. "You hear it too?" "Yes." The dog's tail swept once in confirmation. Another listener awakens, testing their connection for the first time. "Where?" "Far, but not beyond reach." Noah smiled, understanding without words what would come next. Tomorrow they would speak with Williams and Dr. Reed. Tomorrow they would begin planning the next phase of their journey, reaching out to this new listener, offering guidance, expanding their growing network. "Who's next, Max?" he asked softly, echoing the words from Officer Nolan's notebook. Max's ears pricked forward, his gaze still fixed on the distant horizon, as if already tracking the silent voice calling to them through the night.
"We will find them together," came his certainty, "as we found each other."
Noah placed his hand on Max's head, the connection between them humming with shared purpose and unspoken understanding. The medallion warmed against his chest, not in warning, but in promise, a reminder of the legacy they now carried forward. And somewhere beyond ordinary perception, a man in a raincoat smiled in approval, his work continued by those who had learned to listen when the world was silent. Across town, in her temporary lodging, Lily sat with Scout beneath a window open to the same starlit sky. Her fingers traced the outline of a small wooden carving she'd been given by the silver-haired woman in her dreams. A simple ear, exquisitely detailed, mounted on a leather cord. "I felt them connect to someone new," she whispered to Scout. "Noah and Max reaching out." Scout's intelligent eyes met hers, his thought clear in her mind. The circle grows, as it was meant to. Will we see them again soon?
Yes, our paths are now joined. The listening network reawakens.
Lily smiled, hanging the wooden ear around her neck, where it settled comfortably, already warming to her touch. She closed her eyes, joining Scout in extending her awareness outward, adding her consciousness to the silent call traveling across the darkness. A beacon for those with ears to hear, a welcome to those awakening to their gifts, a promise that they were not alone. And in the quiet of an autumn night, scattered across distances both physical and metaphysical, the listeners stirred. Some already aware of their abilities, some just beginning to perceive the silent voices, all connected by an invisible thread that transcended ordinary communication. The circle widened, the legacy continued, and those who had gone before watched over those who would carry the work forward, one silent voice at a time. Like, share, and let us know where you're listening from in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories that will leave you in tears.